Hello guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Maddie, and a few days ago I made a post saying that I was going to take a couple days break, and I want to explain why I did that, some of the things leading up to that, just some things I'm going to be doing in the future that I feel like I could start doing better. I actually was originally going to make this video instead of that post, and a couple days ago I sat down to record this, and I just realized I was really stressed, I was really tired. It was not a good idea to do that because, talking and venting about stuff when you're really stressed and really tired to the internet is probably not the best idea, to be frank. So I decided to step back for a couple days, just kind of process some things. And I'm feeling a lot better, and I just want to talk some things over. Now, before we begin, I do want to say right off the bat, thank you to the people on that post. You guys were very kind. I did read some of the comments on there, and you guys really seemed to get it, so I really do appreciate that. Second of all, I'm going to be talking about some toxicity that's been going on in the community recently. However, I'm not calling anyone out. I'm not going to name any names. Also, I'm going to be discussing some things that now that I've had more time and more experience on YouTube, I feel like I can start doing better, but this is not, a YouTuber apology video because at the time I don't really think I knew how to handle things better, whereas now I've wisened up a little bit. Okay, so first off, I really want to explain where I'm coming from. So I made this channel 3 years ago, actually on this upcoming Monday. We're reaching this channel's third birthday. And for the first year of this YouTube channel, I got no views, which was honestly deserved because I was only uploading maybe once every 2 weeks. I didn't have a consistent uploading schedule. Those videos have long since been deleted. They were just so bad. But it was, I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it was around November 2024 where several videos I had did fairly well, and that was when I started consistently uploading videos, a lot of which are now deleted. The average one of those would usually get 500 views. I think at that point I never really got above 500 subscribers, so I was definitely an extremely small YouTuber. I never really had to deal with hate comments or anything like that. There was the occasional person who would be mean, but even back then it didn't really affect me because a lot of times when they were saying mean stuff, it didn't even make sense what they were saying, so I didn't really care too much. It was really in November of 2025 that my channel just blew up and started to grow. I made a video then, and it was right at the beginning of the release of Hazbin Hotel Season 2, and I made a video where I just had a clip of the Don't You Forget reprise, and I just said the song was really good, and that video shot up to 50,000 views, which for me at that time was a huge deal. And it wasn't just a one-off. My channel kept growing. I kept getting videos that were that big, so it really just went from there, and I was having a lot of fun with it. I gained 2,000 subscribers overnight, which again, this was a huge deal. And it was at that time I kind of built my image, and I kind of built what this community is surrounded by, which is first of all supporting indie animation, indie art, just being creative, that sort of thing. Then also, I really established at that time that I'm extremely active with my community, and I think at that point, even then, I was reading nearly every comment. If you go back on those videos from then, you will see nearly every comment I ever got was hearted because I was reading all of them. And I still do that. I'm already spending nearly an hour every day reading comments and just trying to, get to know my community and trying to reply to people. So I don't really like going above that amount of time because, after a while, enough is enough. And, I get the general point. But back then, I wasn't reaching a huge audience. I tended to stay within the demographic I was targeting, which was mainly, indie animation fans, Hazbin Hotel fans, because mainly at that point I was only really doing Hazbin Hotel content because this is what I was familiar with, I was comfortable doing it, and I felt like I could do it fairly easily. So I did get the occasional hate comment then, but I honestly didn't mind those too much because most of them came from people who I wasn't really trying to reach. They came from people who absolutely despised Hazbin Hotel. And ironically, for as much hate as the Hazbin Hotel fandom gets on the internet for being toxic, I can probably count on one hand how many times Hazbin Hotel fans have been toxic to me. It almost never happened. For the most part, they were very sweet. They were very nice, and I really appreciated that because we got to build a really nice community. And yeah, sometimes I would get really cringy comments from Hazbin Hotel fans, but honestly, I don't really care. If you're living your best life and you're having fun doing a whole fanfiction roleplay sort of thing in my comment section, comment your heart out doing that. It seems like they're really having fun. So also at this point, probably in December, January, something like that, I started making a lot of polls, and that's another thing my channel has really been known for. There are people who never watch my videos, but I know they're subscribed to me just for the polls because I make so many of them. I know I'm at least doing, you know, one a day. Well, my channel kept really growing, so my subscriber goal for this year was 7,500. I hit that in May. I'm now close to 18,000. So I've been doubling nearly every 2 months, which is huge, and I'm extremely grateful for it, and I've had so much fun with this channel and making all this content. The downside is, I've noticed once you hit 10,000 subscribers, you hit those double digits, people a lot of times, it seems like they stop viewing you as a person, just a small creator who's trying to have fun, and they start viewing you as more of a content making machine. I've just kind of noticed that, and also I've really noticed that I'm hitting a much larger audience now than I was when I was, you know, at like 2,000 subscribers. Now that I'm closer to 18,000, I'm getting a whole bunch of new people in that probably I'm not really trying to target, so I'm getting stuff from them too, which again, I'm going to bring that up later. So it was in about April or May that I watched The Amazing Digital Circus up to episode 8, because obviously episode 10 wasn't out at that point. And I honestly really had fun watching it. It was a good show. I had a lot of fun watching it, and I posted on my channel just a little post, you know, saying that I watched it, and, you know, everybody was like really happy that I watched it, and I was like, do you guys want me to make TADC content and talk about it? And people were very much unanimously and wanted to see me make content for it. So I was like, cool. It really just kind of went hand in hand with that indie animation vibe, so I was kind of happy to do it. And I thought the TADC fandom and the Has Been Hotel fandom were very similar. I didn't really make a lot of content for TADC until after the finale came out. I think I waited a week because, you know, I wanted to respect that people might not have watched it, and I didn't want to, you know, spoilers and all that. So I kind of waited for that, and then I started making quite a bit of it. And one of the first TADC videos I made, it got over 600,000 views, so I thought, oh, people seem to like to watch this. Cool. I did notice on that post, though, the video was when Jax is in the room with all the other versions of it, and he says, "No girls allowed." I was making a joke that, like, Jax, do you hear yourself saying that? And overall, people were just kind of laughing and joking about it. I did notice a surprisingly large amount of the comments were just really different than from what I was used to. Normally, I'm used to comments that are hating or disagreeing, just being from people who just don't like the show and therefore don't get it, or just, you know, that sort of thing. Or if they're disagreeing, they are in the fandom and they're just kind of telling me why they disagree with it, and they're doing it in a respectful way, which I'm completely fine with. Whereas this was different, I noticed. It was more like people were just extremely offended by it, and I thought, no, one off because, you know, being transgender is an extremely sensitive topic right now, so maybe it's that. It was then I started making TADC polls, and again, I noticed a huge shift where people were just, instead of having friendly arguments in the comments where one person saying, oh, I like this character, and then the other person would be like, no, I like this character more, and they just kind of go back and forth on it, and, you know, it was kind of lighthearted. It got really weird and really bad really fast. So I thought maybe it was just, you know, I might be hitting the wrong people maybe with my polls or something like that with videos, so I kind of just kept doing it because I figured, you know, just a bunch of one-offs or something like that. It was kind of very quickly that I realized it wasn't a one-off, because it wasn't just that. I've had multiple people threaten to dox me, which really kind of got to me. I had people threaten to hurt me over just the dumbest stuff. Like, there was this one video, I think I rated Jax a 7 out of 10. I had 3 separate people threaten to dox me, and one person sent me a death threat because 7 out of 10 wasn't good enough, and then one person said it was way too high. It's a character, a fictional character, like, chill out, for heaven's sakes. And I've never had that experience before, so again, I was just kind of chucking it up to, you know, this is weird, but maybe not a continual thing. Again, though, in a video a little bit later on where I was ranking TADC episodes, just how much I liked them, and I've done stuff like that before for Has Been Hotel, and usually people would disagree with me, but at the same time they were chill about it. This one, people were like giving me personal attacks and just saying really nasty stuff, and then they started arguing with each other, and it just got really nasty, so I ended up turning the comments off to that. And it was kind of that point I realized, you know, something is just kind of off here. It was also at this point on the polls, because YouTube, for poll options, it only lets you have 4 options there, and there's only a couple characters in TADC, so I would say, you know, who do you think was Kane's favorite? And I'd have Jax, Gangle, Ragathan, or Pomni, or something like that there, and then immediately the whole thing would be like, well, where's Kinger? Where's this character? Where's that character? It's like, they're not here. I would love to put them here. I would love to put the whole cast here to make it more accurate. I can't. And I had multiple people tell me to study how to make polls and surveys because I was spreading misinformation, evidently. I would like to reiterate something really quickly and make this very clear. YouTube polls are not some sort of accurate social survey counter. For all you know, there's a person with multiple accounts voting multiple times. I have no idea who I'm hitting. Surveys should be among a wide group of people to get an accurate result. And YouTube, you're not going to get that because people's algorithm, funnel stuff to them. So if you're trying to get really accurate data off YouTube, you're not going to get it. I really want to make that very clear. You're not going to get accurate data off YouTube polls. You might get a glimpse at accurate data or get something close to it. But if you're going to start throwing those numbers around, then you're very wrong because, first of all, I'm hitting a much younger audience on YouTube. I know that most of my viewers are 13 to 18 years old. So they're going to have much different perspective than perhaps the rest of the population on some stuff. And I just really wanted to make that very clear. If you guys, because I've had multiple people accuse me of like rigging polls. First of all, there is no way to rig polls on YouTube. Like, I know there's a way where you can rig YouTube Shorts and buy views or buy bots. If you think I have the kind of money for that, then I really wish I did. I don't have that kind of money. And if I did, I wouldn't, because then what's even the point? I don't see the point in doing that. But there is no way to rig a YouTube poll. There simply isn't. As far as I know, you can't buy votes. So to me, that's extremely ridiculous, and I just want to make that very clear. So it was at this point I just kind of was really getting sick of it, and then it kind of came to a head with a video where I was saying that I found how Glitch has been making a bunch of Jax merch, and it's almost all the made merch for him. And in a video I was saying I just found it kind of weird, and most of the comments to that were just extremely kind of just mean, and then people started arguing in the comments and it just kind of got nasty. First of all, I want to clarify, when I was saying that, yes, I understand Jax is a fictional character. The reason I was saying that is because I think that, especially because of the uncomfortable and flustered expressions on Jax's face, that Glitch has extremely fetishized that merch, which is a real-world problem, which is why I have a bit of an issue with it. And, I'm not, super offended by it. I'm just saying, it seems kind of like a money grab, and it seems a little weird, which is my opinion, and I understand if you don't agree with it. That's kind of where I was coming at with that. And so all of that just kind of led up to me just getting kind of really stressed and fed up with stuff, and so I decided to take the break. Like I said, originally I was going to make this video, but I realized, I was just really stressed, I was really tired, so I decided to take a break and think some things over. So I want to talk about what I'm going to do going forward now that I'm a little more savvy to this kind of stuff, and I realize, it's not a fluke, it's not, and I do understand that the internet is always going to have mean people, and, there's always going to be someone who wants to be edgy, wants to be cool, or maybe just doesn't like the content, which is fine. I just want to talk about some things I think that my audience has been doing, because some of these people actually are subscribing to me, and I would really like it if you guys didn't do this. Okay, first of all, I've had multiple people ask me for my phone number, my personal info, like my full name, what state I live in, where I live, that sort of thing. And I want to make it very clear, I am not going to be sharing any of that on this channel. First of all, I am underage, so I have no wish to have any form of private communication. I love talking to my subscribers, but we can do it over YouTube comments where it's public. Also, I want to make it very clear, I will always be very friendly to people on YouTube. I like doing that, and I consider many of you to be friends, but in the sense that it's online friends, not, oh, let's go to Starbucks and get a unicorn frappuccino together and talk about, boys. No, okay? There's a huge difference. So just because I'm nice to you on YouTube does not mean you are entitled to, personal information about me. I have no idea who you are behind that screen. For all I know, you're some 40-year-old dude being weird. I don't know, okay? So another thing that has made me incredibly uncomfortable is ever since I've started showing my face on here, I've had people make creepy comments or try to hit on me and stuff. Please don't do that. And I will give credit where credit is due. A lot of times when I say I'm underage, people immediately back off, which, very good. Just please don't do that. It makes me really uncomfortable, and I really don't like that at all. So I understand it's probably coming from a place, you're trying to be nice or, just trying, but just please don't do that with me here. And, just as a general rule of life, don't do that online. you guys have no idea who I am. I have no idea who you are. I find it kind of weird. Okay, I want to talk about kind of a shift in TADC content that I'm going to be making. So, I'm really going to kind of just tone down on it a bit. I'm going to make one more poll for TADC, and that's going to be the last one I make. It's going to be asking what age range people who watch TADC in, because I am still struggling to believe that some of the stuff that people are saying is coming from full-grown adults whose frontal lobes are developed. Like, I'm still struggling to believe that, so I'm just curious what age range TADC is actually just hitting. So I'm going to be making a poll about that, just out of my own curiosity, and that's going to be the last one I make because they're just getting way too toxic, just not only with me, but with just the commenters and the people talking. Next of all, I am going to be making TADC shorts. I was really considering not doing it anymore, but it is something I really enjoy, and I'm just going to try to be a little bit more strict with deleting really mean comments because, you know, we don't need to be doing that. I want this community to be very accepting with each other and just a place where we can uplift each other, not something that we're just using to tear each other down. That's never been the point of this channel, to tear each other down. So I don't want your takeaway from this to be like, oh, woe is me, or you have to walk on eggshells around me. I love this channel and I love talking to you guys. I want this place to be fun for everyone, and I do really appreciate the support I've gotten, and I don't want this video to end on a sour note. I am going to return to my regular upload schedule this Sunday, and just remember, no matter what channel you're on, at some point there is a real person behind every screen, and, you know, let's just use the internet to uplift each other and not just be toxic and hateful. We don't need to be doing that. And I had a lot of amazing interactions with TADC fans, and I want to say that not every TADC fan that I've just talked to on here has been toxic and mean. Just seems to be a large percentage. I think a lot of times what happens is a couple toxic ones will comment something, and then somebody who has a wildly different opinion will comment something back with them, and then it just goes downhill from there. So usually before those really toxic people get to the video, it's really chill and it's really nice. So I just think that that's the main problem, that people are instigating each other, and normally hate comments don't bother me. You know, I've made videos before where I react to hate comments, and one of the biggest things that people are saying is, oh, you don't seem to really mind them, or they don't seem to offend you. They don't. It's when it's personal threats, and you guys are just completely tearing each other apart and saying really cruel stuff to each other to the point where you're trying to use slurs and just trying to be really cruel. Like, that's completely unnecessary. So I do also want to thank you guys for being really positive and really nice about when I expressed that I needed a break. So you guys are really awesome about that. And, you know, I'm not going to harp on this. I'm not going to make a bunch of follow-up videos explaining this. I'm not going to make a bunch of follow-up posts. I want to move on. I want us to have fun. And the only big differences I'm going to be making to this channel, like I said, no more TADC polls after that final one. Then, second of all, I am going to be implementing a thing where I'm going to be taking a 3-day break every month, probably, you know, the 14th, the 15th, and the 16th, something like that. Just because I think part of my issue is that I tend to let things build up until they get really bad, and then I just get extremely stressed. So instead of doing that, I'm just going to be taking a small break every month. I'll probably just have like a little re-upload on each of those days that you guys can watch or something like that, just to kind of keep the algorithm from, you know, being all weird and stuff. Then also, I am going to be a bit stricter with kind of moderating comments. Before, I've always been very loose with it. I'm starting to realize I can't do that anymore. Like, if a comment is clearly trying to be inflammatory, it needs to go. And I'm going to hold by that one. So, again, I really don't want to harp on this, so I'm going to end the video here, and I want you to know I love you guys, and I will see you in the next one.